Good morning and welcome to the 2024 Washington State University Community Engagement Summit. My name is Ben Calabretta and I serve as the director of the WSU Center for Civic Engagement, or CCE. This year we are celebrating a couple of milestones, including the 30th anniversary of the CCE and the 5th anniversary of the Community Engagement Summit. We are excited that you are all here joining us for this event as we highlight several ways that community engagement is happening across the WSU system. Our goal is that you learn about and feel inspired by the amazing partnerships statewide between faculty, students, and community partners, and how those partnerships have manifested into true community-changing collaboration. Before we jump in, I'd like to go over a few important housekeeping items. First, the summit is being recorded, and these videos will be, the videos of the presentations will be posted on the CCE YouTube channel and linked to the summit website. Second, we'll be utilizing the chat function today to connect with each other and ask questions of our presenters. In fact, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you are and what organization or department you are representing. Today, we'll be listening to Spark presentations that highlight a variety of partnerships and community engagement activities happening around Washington State University. Sparks are 8 to 10-minute presentations, and they're intended to inspire, inform, and spark ideas for future collaborations. And new this year to the Community Engagement Summit, after you've been inspired with these Spark presentations, we wanted to give you the opportunity to learn more about how you can get involved. So we have 2 info sessions directly following the main program, where you'll be able to learn more about how to work with the CCE and can support your work with your students, or you can learn how to work with the Office of Research Advancement and Partnerships and some of the community engaged research opportunities that they have available. So before we get to the main program, I want to do the WSU land acknowledgement. And I think this is more pertinent and important for an event like this, where we're talking about community engagement and how we actually engage with reciprocity with the communities that we share the land with. So Washington State University would like to acknowledge that its locations statewide are on the homelands of Native peoples who have lived in this region from time immemorial. Currently, there are 37 federally recognized tribes that share their traditional homelands and waterways in what is now Washington State. Some of these are nations and confederacies that represent multiple tribes and bands. The university expresses its deepest respect and gratitude towards these original and current caretakers of the region. We acknowledge that the disposition of indigenous lands was often taken by coercive and violent acts and the disregard of treaties. And for that, we extend our deepest apologies. We owe our deepest gratitude to the Native peoples of this region and maintain our commitment towards reconciliation. Now, I am honored to introduce Washington State University Associate Vice President of Research Advancement and Partnerships, Dr. Christen, who will provide opening remarks.
Good morning. Thanks, Ben. I'm really glad to be here today to kick off this annual event that's focused on community engagement in all of the forms that it takes. Community engagement is really central to WSU's land grant mission, especially now as we reevaluate that mission by looking closely at its history and current forms. The land acknowledgement is a purposeful act that recognizes Indigenous territorial sovereignty and ongoing relations. And it also reminds us all to examine the histories and ongoing relationships in the places we live and work. I live and work on the homelands of the Nimiipuu and the Palouse peoples, and I recognize their continuing connection to, stewardship of, and knowledge about the land, the waterways, and the ancestors. Do we have the slides, Rob? I don't see the slides. I guess I'll just keep going without slides. Land acknowledgements also make clear the connection between territorial dispossession and higher education. For several years, my office here at WSU was in Morrill Hall. That name may be familiar to you. In 1861, Vermont Representative Justin Morrill sponsored the Morrill Act, which is a piece of legislation that provided states with lands designated by the government as quote unquote public domain lands to build and grow universities. President Abraham Lincoln signed the Morrill Act in 1862, and what we know today as land-grant universities began, and their legacies continue to this day. So, of course, this designation of lands as public domain quickly glosses over the genocide, removal, and deterritorialization of Native peoples sanctioned by the US government, as well as those ongoing benefits to the states and the universities from those original violences. And we heard that in the land acknowledgement. So WSU, like all land-grant universities, continues to reap financial benefits from that original dispossession of Native lands. Mainly through timber harvest, WSU generates over $4 million a year. 2 years ago, Robert Lee and Tristan Antone from High Country News aggregated data from federal and state documents to map what they call land grab universities. Their work shows in really fiscal and territorial detail that land-grant universities were not just built on Indigenous land, but with Indigenous land. And this connection is really significant as we engage with and think through what does community engagement mean and how should we conduct ourselves, not just with Native nations, but with all communities. How do we build trust with those communities? How do we sustain relationships built on respect? Where does the knowledge and data gathered and created in those engagements go? Who controls it? These are just some of the questions that emerge as we seek to engage with communities, whether through research projects or student learning experiences. In each instance, we need to think of the partners first. I started doing community engaged research as a grad student in Australia in 1995 with the Warramungu community, and I've continued to work with them over the last 25 years. When I started working there, I had a very clear directive from the people that I worked with. They wanted to record and pass on their knowledge to the next generation. They wanted to use technology in ways that were culturally responsive. Instead of bending their culture to fit the technology, they wanted the technology to bend to fit their culture. So together, we created software that's now used globally by Indigenous communities to manage, protect, and share their cultural knowledge and practices. I was fortunate that when I graduated and took the position at WSU, there was already a commitment to community engagement at the university. And I've seen it grow over the 19 years that I've been here. It's a key part of our identity as a land-grant university. That is to ensure that the communities we serve are an integral part of knowledge creation and dissemination, that they're true partners in our research and teaching. Over my 19 years at WSU, I've worked with Native nations in our region, many of whom we have memorandums of understanding with, as well as Indigenous communities globally. And what I've learned in that community engagement is that community engagement thrives on and is nourished by relationship building, respect, and reciprocity. Truly beneficial relationships are formed over time and through cultural humility, being willing not only to see another group's perspective, but more importantly, to make that view central, putting the needs and goals and values of the community above the needs of the class, the project, or the research. When communities' priorities, goals, values, and needs are central, respect is earned and it grows. And with that respect comes the trust that can lead to reciprocity. That is, that cyclical sharing of knowledge where true learning takes place. I look forward to hearing about the many community engaged projects happening at WSU across WSU today. Each one is an integral part of building these relationships and earning the trust of the communities we live in and we serve. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Kim. Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you here today. I am Jessica Peroni, Assistant Director of Engaged Learning at the Center for Civic Engagement on the Pullman campus. To get us started, I would like to introduce our first Spark presentation, facilitated by Tony Brave from the Tribal Nation Building Leadership Program.
Okay, can you hear me? Good? Okay, hi everybody. Yeah, I'm Tony Brave. I'm a member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe and Chippewa Cree descendant, and I'm here to talk about the Tribal Nation Building Leadership Program. A little background about me is I'm an assistant professor here with a joint position between Digital Technology and Culture Department and the Office of Tribal Relations, where one of my roles or duties is to be the TNBL coordinator. I'm also NYU doctoral candidate at as of Monday, so we'll see how that goes. But enough about me. I'm here to talk about TNBL. So what is it? It is a scholarship-based cohort program for Native American undergraduates, where they start freshman year and they go all the way to their senior year, taking courses together. Fun fact, cohort, the word cohort comes from an old sort of Roman word that means a sort of a military unit, where this unit is trained and deployed together. And so I like to think of them as, or think of ourselves as training really cool Native warriors. And here is on the right side, you can see a picture of some of our students who joined in our little bowling night, our Native warrior bowling night the other week. It's hard to get them to look at you when you're taking pictures with multiple people, but I got one. But anyhow, yeah, it's currently like concurrently this year we had 19 students as part of this program, so it's not like super big. But they represent 14 different tribal nations. And we just have 5 graduate this year. It was very wonderful. We're very happy to see them, continue on, but sad to see them leave. But yeah, when is TNBL? So back in 2013, the program was first kicked off. It was at the advice of the Native American Advisory Board to the Wazoo president. They were they saw a need for their community, which was that they wanted their undergraduate students to have a background in nation building. And they sort of laid out 4 particular components that they'd like to see as part of this nation building program. If you think of it in academic years, it is the 10th anniversary of Native American, of TNBL. So pretty cool stuff. All right, moving on. So what is nation building? What is nation building in a tribal context? So according to Dr. Brayboy and the crew, tribal nation building refers to the sort of variety of processes through which Indigenous peoples engage in order to build local capacity to address a variety of needs that the community has addressed. In other words, it is an intentional, purposeful application of human and social capital to address the needs of tribal nations and communities. Yeah, there's our little citation there. On the right hand, you can see a picture of, I think that's Zoe High Eagle Strong, sort of hosting one of these Native American Advisory Board meetings to the Wazoo president. But yeah, so that is what we're doing. We are basically building capital, Native Indigenous capital, right, to help serve our Native communities. All right, so what are the 4 guiding principles of TNBL that they've laid out? The first one is citizenship, which with an emphasis in sort of being upstanding members of not only our human communities, but also our natural communities. A keyword here is reciprocity, which you should be familiar with because I know everybody read Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass. You had 2 years to do it. Yeah. The second one is scholarship. We emphasize tribal and indigenous knowledge, methodologies, and values in the practice of supporting our communities and teaching this to our students. It's likely one of the only places where indigenous knowledge is being taught, discussed, and actively credited and celebrated. The third one is stewardship, which is the caring for, the maintenance, right, of the gifts given to us, including ourselves, our lands, and our greater relations, right? So I think of this as, maintaining our relations. And then the last one is, guardianship, which is protecting our established relations. In a political context, it sort of translates to protecting our tribal sovereignty, which is our inherent right to self-determination as Native nations here in America. Or yeah, protecting our relations is how I think of it as. So those are the 4 guiding principles to this program. And I also have one more slide for you guys, just to give you an idea of the kind of courses that the students go through over the years. So the first is a kind of survey course that teaches them, these students, the basics about Indigenous politics, history, governance, and it's taught by Dr. Cheryl Ellenwood, who's Nimipu and Dene. And yeah, it has a bit of a focus on Indigenous institutions and organizations. In the spring, our wonderful Director of Native American Student Services, Joelle, who's Anishinaabe, teaches this Native Leadership Through Cultural Events course. So it's kind of like a service learning course where a lot of their work that the students do builds up and culminates in the creation of the annual Paloots Poo Powwow. So it's a pretty cool thing. We just had our 46th Paloots Poo Powwow this year, and it went, nice and smoothly. And they can take this course multiple times, right? So you'll see this a couple times. Year 2, in the fall, they take a Native American history course, pre-contact to present with Dr. Ryan Booth, who's an Upper Skagit tribal member. Then we get into my favorite, no, because I'm a little biased, no, the contemporary issues in Indian course that I teach. It's kind of like, you could think of it as an equivalent of the, I guess, historical roots of contemporary issues type of UCOR related courses, but it's very specific to Indian country, or like, that's what we call Indian country, like the world of Native Americans. And then finally, the last courses that they take with Dr. Ken Lokensgaard, who is kind of our token non-native professor in the TNBL program. They take a course where they kind of do a research capstone project that they focus on a particular issue that they're interested in, that probably likely touches their community. And, they get to practice Indigenous research methodologies in this course. Yeah, I think that's just about it. I don't know if I went over time or not, but if you have any questions, there's so much more to this program. They have, there's other components like they have to do internships and stuff like that. But if you want to talk to me more about this program, feel free to reach out. My email is in the chat, and looking forward to everybody's presentations today. Thank you.
Oh, hello, I'm Jan Bol. I am a professor in civil and environmental engineering and co-director of the Center for Environmental Research, Education and Outreach. Oh, my slides are advancing by themselves. I'm going to talk to you briefly about our National Science Traineeship Program. We refer to it as the Rivers, Watersheds and Communities Program. And within it, we have a community engagement component. I see Erica Crespi is on this too. She's a co-PI on this project. And we also have Zoe High Eagle Strong as a co-PI. The rest I didn't put on this slide, so you'll have to go to our website for that. And we are referring to community engagement from our perspective of master's and PhD research. So this is about research scholarship. And we have identified that, like many of you, we understand that communities face many different issues. Ours is related to river water quality. And those communities already have ongoing problems, and they also have assets that they can use to implement solutions. So we try to merge our work directly with theirs to co-identify the challenges or co-produce solutions that then become better opportunities for these communities to deal with those problems. And in doing so, we are trying to change our university or help assist our university, I should say by now, because we're doing it with a lot more people, to work towards scientific approaches in training, research, and problem solving. And because our traineeship is focused on graduate students, we are embedding the students in this multi-directional transfer of knowledge between communities. And we all have tribes, the communities that are also considered sometimes agencies. And of course, we are the university involved in that. Maybe you've seen this diagram before, but we are saying we should move ourselves from an outreach-oriented system to a more shared leadership and collaborative system. This is a process. This is not something that is automatic. Like Kim was saying, it can take a long time to build trust and to provide this relationship building. And that's certainly something that we are all focusing on. So in our particular traineeship program, the Rivers, Watershed, and Communities traineeship program, we have on the left side some core skills that we believe researchers need to have in order to engage in research and solution development with communities. And that is certainly something that will come out in a minute. We'll have some coursework that goes with it, but these are also people that are in research programs and get their coursework through their reprograms. So when you go to the middle panel, before you actually start engaging, you should have some of this training to do it. And you'll see that we want to also provide a sort of co-development of this system. So you see two cogs in the system that are going together to be able to do engagement together. This is the process that was on the previous slides. Takes time. It's not an automatic. And certainly for master students who are typically in the program for 2 years, this can be a fairly rapid process. And then for that, we do rely on our faculty members, their major advisors, to already have some of these relationships in place. And a PhD student also still a fairly short time period for some of this work, but they have a slightly longer time period to engage in this process. And if you get to the right-hand side of this, then we would see that not just the co-production of knowledge, but also understanding the ethical and reciprocity that is needed to be able to do this work. Clearly, cultural awareness is important. And then the way that the NSF sees us doing this is to say, where are these students going at the end? What careers are they going to take? And many of them are taking careers outside of academia. We have partners in this. The Center for Civic Engagement has provided our cohort what's called the Community Engaged Scholars Workshop. They did it for the first time last fall, and we've really, I think, benefited from their help in understanding community engagement. We have also a partnership with the Native American Research and Collaboration Center that is headed up by Zoe High Eagle Strong and with help from Ken Lokensgaard. And we also connect to Extension. We have Brett Geolag and we have Mike Gaffney involved with this as well. So we're trying to really situate ourselves as best as possible within the system, the university system. And the one thing that we are trying to leave behind is our Rivers, Watersheds, Communities Graduate Certificate. It's a 10-credit certificate, just got approved last year. And we start with the Community Engaged Scholarship Credit, which is where the scholarship workshop that Jessica and Ben provided for us. And it starts the process of understanding what we mean by it. So the students in that class start developing what we call a community engagement plan. It's the beginning components of that work. And then we have three more nice 3-credit classes. One is by Lennon Charlo is on Native Science, Tribal, Environmental Policy, and Collaboration. Kate Kraszewski provides a class in Integrated Solutions Experiences, which I'll talk about a little bit more. And at the final process, when they have done the community engagement, we provide them 3 credits and produce some products from it. In addition, this program is focusing on student-centered mentoring, and we use a component of what NIH has developed, and NSF is probably getting more familiar with. This is called the Individual Development Plan. So it is the pathway for the students to get through the program, but also understand what career choices they will have along the way and the skill building that goes with that. So here's one example for us to have done this community engagement as part of a class. This is the integrated solutions experience that Kate Krasevsky has taught. And it is the understanding that, unfortunately, our environment has serious problems with forever chemicals, we call them PFAS. And our client in this course has a clear problem with it. These folks are located northeast of Spokane in the West Plains system. And they actually themselves organized as a community. It was called the West Plains Water Coalition. So we came in contact with them through a meeting that we had with the Spokane River Forum, and it became clear that it would be really beneficial for us to co-create some knowledge along this topic. So as part of the class, we had a visit to the community to understand directly where they are and what the problems are. Well, actually, the slides should be switched in order, but the first thing that happened, the problem of the PFAS in this area comes from the airports, both the Spokane airport, but also the Air Force base that is sitting a little bit fairly nearby, actually. And it turned out, you see the smoke in the air there. We were visiting, and by chance, they were doing a fire drill. And when these fire drills happened, and they've been happening since the 70s, they actually used this special foam for firefighting, and the runoff that comes from that creates the influx of PFAS in the environment. So we had members of the community show up with us for lunch, but we also went to their houses and heard the really bad stories of people having passed away because of exposure to this PFAS. So this was a really taxing emotionally for the students in the class. But in the end, we were able to provide some historical analysis of the problem and provide products to the communities, this particular case, the members of this coalition, in the form of storybooks, story maps, and other kinds of nice documents. We also have a living atlas that we're developing where we are going to facilitate this with the community to see how they would like it to be expressed out so that other people can also learn from our experience in this. In the next week, we have a symposium. We're going to visit them again. We're going to ask them more specifically, how was this useful? What can we do the next time when we have this class, which is going to happen this fall? That's my slides. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jan. Next, I would like to introduce Gunjan Gakar. She will share with us about her project, Impact of Service Learning on Students in a Microbiology Course.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gunjan Gakar. I'm a Career Track Associate Professor in School of Biological Sciences at WSU Vancouver. I teach many lab-based courses, and one of my lab-based courses is microbiology and molecular biology. And in this course, students learn how to grow bacteria on an agar plate and also how to identify bacteria using different biochemical tests and different molecular biological analysis. And so one of the key experiments is how to grow bacteria and how to do colony morphology analysis. And colony morphology is basically when you grow bacteria on an agar plate or on a plate, bacteria likes to grow in a specific pattern. And you can think of it as small beads. And those beads could be of different colors, could be of different sizes, could be of different shapes. So essentially, looking at those colony patterns, you can somewhat have an idea what that bacteria might be. So on the other hand, for the community service learning aspect, I had been over the years building a connection with the biology teacher at iTech High School, which is very close to WSU Vancouver. And so during one of our conversations, we thought that high school students would benefit from learning these kind of experiments. And I felt like, okay, our microbiology WSU Vancouver students are going to benefit from that as well, from teaching high school students about these different experiments. So that's how this thing started, building this community service learning activity into my microbiology and molecular biology course. And so the flow is that I met multiple times with the iTech biology teacher, which you can see on the left-hand side. We talked about the logistics, how we can connect community service learning activity into this course. Then once that was all settled, how we want to go with it, I talked to students about community service learning, WSU Vancouver students, introduced them to this concept, and then had done a pre-community service learning survey. So before they met the students. Then the students, as you can see in October, students were paired. So one iTech high school student was paired with one WSU Vancouver student. And that's what you are seeing in the picture. In the picture, you have these WSU Vancouver and iTech high school students, and that was the lab where we do this microbiology and molecular biology course. And after this activity, we did also a post-community service learning survey. So you can see over here so those surveys, basically we had surveys done, and what was happening was students, WSU Vancouver students, learned about these different techniques, how to grow bacteria and how to do colony morphology analysis. And the idea was that they teach this concept to high school students in hands-on experience way. So for the students, high school students, they brought samples. We gave them sterile swabs, and they could bring sample from anywhere, wherever they want to. Some specific like restrooms, those were were not included. And then they grew the sample inoculations were done on the agar plate, and they came next time to do the analysis with the WSU Vancouver students. So that's the gist of it, like how the methodology happened. And what you can see over here is the analysis part now. And this analysis part was looking at the understanding of colony morphology, both pre and post community service learning. And you can see that there was a significant increase in understanding of this colony morphology by WSU Vancouver students after they had participated in this community service learning activity. So you can see on the top, you have the post community service learning, and the bottom is the pre-community service learning. And this was like a style question which was asked. Students were asked, not at all, somewhat or very confident in understanding colony morphology. So this was good for the academic learning aspect. And I did also other Likert scale responses where wanted to see, having participated in this community service learning activity, does it make students feel more prepared in explaining concepts in a simplified manner? And so here you can see on the very top, 91% of the students said they agree or strongly agree that now they feel more prepared in explaining concepts in a simplified manner after participation in this community service learning project. And the other thing which stood out was students felt after community service learning activity, they have now learned to work well with others to achieve common goals. So those two main things that came out from these analyses. And then I had also asked question both pre and post community service learning. The pre question was that, what are your perceptions of high school students? And so that's what WSU Vancouver students were answering. And the post community service learning question was, were your perceptions validated or challenged? And so these were open-ended questions which students had answered. And I gave these responses to 3 people, including myself. So 3 independently people, they evaluated those open-ended questions and they categorized them. And this is what you see on the slide, those categories of those responses. And on the left, you have the pre-community learning, service learning categories. And on the right, in the salmon color, you have the post-community service learning category. And so those were the categories. Many students were thinking about age and maturity. So that was their main thing before community service learning. Like students would be very young, they would be not mature, they would not want to learn. But if you see the post-community service learning, 58% of students said that these high school students had academic interest and they were engaged in that activity, so which was really good. And so that was main thing which was coming out, but you can see the other categories were like concerns about high schoolers learning or decreased academic engagement. That was the pre, and post it decreased. So more students, more WSU Vancouver students saw that high school students were much more engaged and interested in the activity. And this one is just giving you some of those examples, what those responses look like. How did we categorize? So for example, I'm going to just take one, like the post-community service learning. The very top one had academic interest and engagement. How did we decide that category? For example, the response was really interested, intrigued, asked questions, engaged in activity, focused, wanted to learn. So this slide is basically giving you some examples for the previous slides, how those were categorized. And one thing we were noticing that, and this was independent, all three people, when we were reading those comments, we started to look into like, are they positive, are they negative, are they neutral? What kind of responses students are giving post-community service learning as well as the pre-community service learning. So what you can see over here, there was a significant shift in the type of responses which were given post-community service learning by WSU Vancouver students. So it came out to be more positive responses than negative after participating in the community service learning activity. And so you can see 62.5% were positive responses compared to 25% which were positive before participation. So these are, again, this slide is some of those examples for the positive responses, for the negative and for neutral responses. And they both are like the pre-community service learning and post-community service learning responses, as you can see. So a positive might be like post-community service learning. Positive was they were very intrigued and found what we were doing so interesting. They wanted to learn, which made me happy. They were so sweet and nice. The negative response, one of them was, if we do the same post-community service learning, I thought they would be more excited and engaged in the process. They didn't seem very excited and didn't talk much or ask questions as we were discussing topics. So you can see there was variability, but overall, WSU Vancouver students did find that high school students were more academically interested and engaged. And I did ask a yes and no kind of questions to high school students. For example, I asked like, would you like to come back for these kind of lessons? Or would you recommend other students to come to WSU Vancouver for these kind of experiments? And unanimously, high school students had said yes. And these are the students who actually made this happen. And so we have both WSU Vancouver students and high school students, both in this picture. There is somewhere principal as well, and our community partner too. So it was a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gunjan. Next, we are honored to include the presentation of awards to two outstanding women of distinction. Erica Crespi is the chair of the President's Commission on the Status of Women. She will present two awards to two women of distinction in the community partner category.
Thank you, Jessica. It is my pleasure to be here today to talk about these amazing women who have served as community partners for WSU, but more so have brought amazing generosity of their time and their commitment to much bigger types of learning that within the courses at WSU that we can provide for our students. This is one of the best things that I can do as chair of the President's Commission for the Status of Women. And today I'll be telling you about two winners. This is the first time we've had a tie for one of our categories. And these two women have such different contributions but also such important contributions. So today we'll be giving this award to Terry Buffington and Allison Munch-Rotolo. So first I will speak to Terry Buffington and everything that she has been doing in working with the WSU community. She is a cultural anthropologist and social activist, and she's based in Mississippi. She received a Master of Science in Student Personnel and Educational Leadership from the University of Mississippi, and a Master in Anthropology from the University of Memphis. And she dedicated her life to studying the work and documenting the activism of men and women from West Point, Mississippi, where she hails, during the Civil Rights Movement. And all of her work is archived in the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill system, so that people can access it throughout the world. She is actively involved in local organizations in the community, from diversity, equity, and inclusion groups to senior rights and food insecurity. She started in 2020 the Terry Buffington Foundation to ensure that the history of the 1960s civil rights movement in the South is remembered from African American perspectives. These perspectives she is bringing to WSU students through multiple ways. She has been involved in the WSU Women's Student Retreat this past year. She screens a movie, a film that she has made, the Fundy Ella Baker story from her collection, at multiple theaters. She connects with students, particularly within the Edward R. Murrow College of Communication and College of Arts and Sciences in different ways. She has taught digital technology and culture course called The Art of Storytelling and the Oral Tradition just this past year, which is such an amazing experience to bring to our students, this first-person knowledge and history of these important stories that aren't necessarily in our news cycle or on the web, in the places where students might typically find information, but she can bring them to life so that she can open their minds of our students to these stories and bring them alive in their decision-making, their thinking, and how they view the world. And so for this, we are so grateful that Terry has been so generous with her time and her ability to interact with our students. And as her nominator, Ruth Gregory, who is an assistant professor in the Digital Technology and Culture program, Ms. Buffington is a treasure to the community. Her involvement with students at WSU will leave a lasting positive legacy and understanding of the history of social justice movements in the United States. So thank you and congratulations to Terry Buffington. As I see the acknowledgements. The next woman of distinction is Allison Munch-Rotolo, and Allison brings a different perspective and a different amount of generosity and engagement with the WSU community. She's a local resident and right near in the College Hill area, and she is president of the College Hill Association. So through this association, she's made sure to include students on the board of directors, which brings them into the process of literally an organization that spans university to community, their immediate communities. She works closely with the Center for Civic Engagement and the Center for Fraternity and Sorority Life to facilitate student participation in programs such as the College Hill Adopt a Block program, which is one of the most successful and largest programs of student community engagement. More than 10,000 hours have been logged since 2019, and that is tremendous. She's partnered also with the Digital Technology and Culture faculty and students to create the College Hill Historic District signage program, and is currently developing a map of historic places to bring the importance of the Pullman community and historic importance to the lives of students who might come through the doors on campus. She's also really a leader in the Pullman Historic Preservation Commission. So this is related to those other activities. She's partnered with WSU Landscape Architecture faculty and students to create a downtown Pullman walking tour. And there's the Red Brick Roads project, which ultimately will lead to part of Pullman being listed on the Register of Historic Places. So bringing in historic, lasting programs and information to the students of WSU and involving them in the process. And somehow she finds time to be on the Pullman board of school district board and has done amazing things in that capacity. So she is involved in many different aspects of community in Pullman. And she was nominated by Ben Calabretta, Jessica Peroni, and Dave Jones from the Center for Civic Engagement because of all of these activities. And to just give you a quote from one of the nomination materials from Jessica, students are able to develop a deeper sense of community and connection to the Pullman area through their work with Allison, which we know is critical for student success and retention as well. Allison is the true community champion who brings a program or idea to reality and improve the quality of life of WSU as an institution, the student body, and the community at large. So thank you, Allison, for all that you do with WSU and students and faculty. It's tremendous. I'm so glad I was able to present this to you. You will be receiving a physical award, either by mail or in person sometime next week. But thank you so much and congratulations.
And thank you, Erica, for presenting those awards. And congratulations to Terry and Allison. We really appreciate your partnership. Next, I would like to introduce Sam Swindell and the Launch into Service Learning Initiative.
So much, Jessica, and good morning, everyone. So excited to be with you to talk about this project and the pilot that we ran this past year in partnership with the Center for Civic Engagement, the Launch program, and 2 undergraduate courses, specifically Psych 105 and HD 200. Though I'm presenting this morning, I wanted to quickly acknowledge other individuals who have played key leadership roles in this effort. That includes Lillian Sen, interdisciplinary doctoral student and coordinator for the Launch program, Katie Forsyth, scholarly assistant professor in the Department of Human Development, and Blythe Duell, scholarly associate professor, soon to be full professor in the Department of Psychology. And of course, our partners in the Center for Civic Engagement, in this particular instance, working most closely with Jessica to initiate this project. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the Launch program, it's actually one of the pillars of the Transformational Change Initiative that has been running on the Pullman campus since 2016. The primary or central goal of this program is to facilitate students' appreciation for and engagement in a wide range of experiential learning opportunities, like those depicted in the figure on the right, which certainly includes civic engagement and service learning. We see these opportunities as ways for students to truly customize their undergraduate experience while also reaping the well-documented benefits of learning through doing, which includes, of course, things like utilizing your existing strengths while also having the opportunity to build valuable transferable skill sets, while also enhancing one's self-efficacy and building networks, both personal and professional, that create that kind of hopefully closer connection to both the university and local community. The structure of the Launch program, which I'll share in a moment, is built on the social psychological literature on enhancing identity-based motivation particularly through active reflection of learning. And the program is delivered as in interactive workshops that are conducted in collaboration with undergraduate courses. Those workshops are facilitated by our amazing set of undergraduate peer facilitators. We call them the launch ambassadors, who are students who are themselves already engaged in a wide range of experiential opportunities. And they work with participants in the program to help those individuals find opportunities that meet each participant's unique profile as it relates to their existing strengths, their personal values, and their future goals. We've demonstrated success with this program in two ways. One, by showing significant increases in personal growth for participants from pre to post program, and also by demonstrating improved first-year retention for those who complete the launch program relative to students who have not, but are matched on some critical retention variables. This slide shows basically the new scaffolded, robust framework that we unveiled in fall 2023 that involved the explicit implementation of a service learning component. And it highlights sort of the key components of that new framework. So if you move from left to right, you can see that students initiate the program with a strengths assignment where they complete a dependable strengths assessment. They connect their strengths to the NACE career ready competencies, and then they write a reflective paper of how they're going to use those strengths to support their academic success. That's the first writing assignment in these two courses. In week 5 to 7, they follow that with a visualization task where they imagine a future best self vision of themselves, having been highly successful over those 4 years. And then they create a set of both sort of long-term 4-year goals and related sub-goals for helping them grow into that imagined future version of themselves. In week 7 to 12, they're then asked to incorporate experiential learning opportunities into that 4-year plan, and specifically to think about those opportunities as ways of advancing their sub-goals as they work towards those long-term goals. The partnership with Launch in this format really involved 2 key components, which were introduced to students in week 3. So between those first 2 writing assignments, with an in-class presentation led by the leadership team for Launch and CCE. So in that in-class presentation, we introduced them to the idea of experiential learning and why we see it as so important to their undergraduate experience. And by demonstrating that we feel it's so important, we're going to literally launch them into experiential learning in a small step by requiring a service learning activity. And CCE outlined how to do that using the GIF Pulse platform. The other component of this partnership was to offer students the option of replacing their experiential learning writing assignment in week 7 to 12 with attending one of our out-of-class launch workshops with our peer facilitators. And so to complete those same steps, but to do so in a collaborative, supportive arrangement rather than as an independent writing assignment. Students completed their service learning requirement between week 3 and week 12, and then CCE returned to the 2 classes to do a brief in-class reflection activity for that experience. And then students wrapped up the program at the end of the semester with an integrative assignment that asked them to reflect on their learning experience across the semester and specifically their service learning activity, to also connect that learning to their personal goals and to complete a post-program assessment. We're really encouraged by what we see as pretty significant impact of this program in this initial pilot. So what I'm showing you here are actually the data only for fall 2023. We completed the same program this last semester, but we're not able to assemble all of the data in time for this presentation. So in fall 2023 alone, you can see that this project resulted in over 1,200 total hours of service learning participation, with a wide range of community partners really supporting the needs and services of those organizations. When students were asked to identify the most valuable aspects of the program for in terms of their own learning, these are the top 3 items that they identified. So we had about 40% or 43% of participants saying that creating the time and space for them to really think intentionally about their future goals, to visualize and plan for those goals while also incorporating opportunities and skills was particularly valuable. Just over 14% said that the actual engagement of service learning, so literally being launched into experiential learning, was a significant aspect of this experience for them. And then almost 10% indicating that the opportunity to think about learning experiences in relationship to their personal goals was critical. I've included here a few select quotes that I think helped highlight some of the themes that emerged as students were talking about the value of service learning for themselves. And you see on the one hand, students thinking about these opportunities as ways, in fact, to enhance their own learning and their personal development. So the opportunity to engage in real world projects and to apply what they're learning in the classroom in a real hands-on way. But you also definitely see reflected in these comments the idea of recognizing the ability to have an impact on their local community in a really positive way. And some students certainly reporting that while they may initially have not been incredibly enthusiastic about this requirement, that once they had done it, they really found out how much they enjoy the opportunity to engage in civic engagement. We also asked students to indicate moving forward their plans to engage in experiential learning. And we're really encouraged by these results. So when students were asked to estimate the degree that they plan to engage in experiential learning while at WSU, we have the results for the pre-launch reports and then post-launch. And just to give you an idea of the scale of this diagram, a 1 would be, I don't have any intentions of engaging in experiential learning while I'm a WSU student. A 2 would be, I might engage, but I don't have any specific opportunities in mind. A 3 is, I plan to engage in at least 1 experiential learning opportunity each year while at WSU. 4 is at least 2 opportunities, and 5 is at least 3. What you see here is a significant shift from left to right of that distribution, where we have more students indicating not only the intention to engage in experiential learning, but to engage in more opportunities each year. So we're really excited about these preliminary results because we believe that what we're doing with the program is creating both a foundation for future engagement experiential learning by strengthening a mindset that sees these opportunities as particularly valuable to a student's experience. And as I listen to all of the exciting other opportunities that my co-panelists are presenting on today, my hope is that the launch program is helping to set students up early in their undergraduate experience to then seek out these additional opportunities as just a really critical part of their learning experience. If you would like to know more about the launch program or our particular partnership with CCE, I'd love to connect with you. And I know my contact information is being shared in the chat. And I would just like to close with saying we could not have done this without the support of CCE and the amazing staff that's there. So a shout out to that group. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sam. It really has been a pleasure and honor to work with the launch team and all the students this year. We look forward to next year. Next, I would like to introduce Bob Krikak and Michael Sanchez from the Rural Community Design Initiative.
Good morning. I'm Bob Krikak, and I'm here today with my colleague and co-director of the RCDI, Michael Sanchez, to talk about the RCDI in general, and specifically 4 recent projects that we did with cities in the state of Washington related to their parks planning process. Excuse me, having a Marco Rubio moment here. Our objective, our mission is to work with rural communities and nonprofits in the region to help them envision solutions to their built environment problems. And we work with an interdisciplinary team of students from the School of Design and Construction in interior design, landscape architecture, and construction management, and myself in interior design, and Michael Sanchez in landscape architecture, to meet with the communities using a co-design process, designing with them instead of for them. What we do is we work on projects that range from small rural libraries to parks, Main Street, streetscape ideation and regulations. We've also worked on community centers, a variety of smaller local scale projects. We've worked with the Sauk Swaddle tribe in helping them envision a community health center and planning for new development for the community to get them out of a flood zone. We recently worked with 4 communities in the state of Washington that Michael will talk about in helping them envision their parks for the future planning. Our process is simple. We go to the communities, we meet in person with them in workshops, hands-on, asking a series of prompts about the issues related to the project that they are envisioning or the problem that they're experiencing, to help get out the wants and needs and other concerns of the community. We do hands-on ideation in the workshops, and we come back to the university. We clean that up into a second presentation, go back to the community, present it, get feedback on that, and then come up with what is considered a conceptual design for the project, and leaving the community with a graphic representation of what it is they want to build or improve upon. The communities use this for writing grants, for fundraising, for building community support outside of those who are in the workshops. And it's been quite successful in a number of communities who are able to take that and do the grant writing and development. We get our projects through presenting our work at locations such as the Association of Washington Cities, the Planning Association of Washington, working with consulting engineers and designers, because we get into that early phase of the project where no one's quite sure what they want, and a lot of professional firms appreciate what we do because it helps bring clarity to the work that they would need to execute. We charge a fee for our work. We pay the student interns for their time. We need to cover our travel expenses. And that's how, and we run this through the WSU grant process. In the past, this past year, we just were able to focus on 5 projects, and most of them parks planning, but also a community center for the city of Soap Lake. And with that, I will turn a more detailed description of this recent experience in the prose planning to Michael Sanchez.
Thank you, Bob. So as Bob mentioned, a lot of our projects center around different community different challenges that the community has, from community centers to libraries to streetscapes. This last year, all of the projects except for the community center in Soap Lake that Bob mentioned were centered around their park systems. And we were able to acquire these projects through collaboration with Osborne and Gray engineers and SCJ Alliance, landscape architecture and planning out of Seattle and Central Washington, and their offices there. And these particular projects, again, you see the word PROS planning. The PROS is an acronym for Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Planning. And this is all under the umbrella of the state's Recreation and Conservation Office. And in order for these cities and communities to be considered for state and federal grants, they have to update their PROS plans every 6 years. So the PROS plans is a strategic plan that involves community input, public input into the process of what the community wants for their vision of their park systems. And that's where RCDI came in on these particular projects. Gray and Osborne and SCJ Alliance were the professional offices that were helping those communities with their the applications for those grants, for the formation of the PROS plan document, and then ultimately for the design and implementation of those parks. The stage of the project that we worked with the students was the large-scale strategic planning and in kind of visioning for their park systems. We have, RCDI has in the past gone into greater detail in doing park design for some communities. But in these particular projects, it was more high-level planning and really engaging with the community, facilitating community meetings and workshops that where we could get a view and a perspective from the community members that were involved there. So starting last summer, so almost a year ago now, we started visiting. We took a kind of a visit through a road trip through Central Washington, and we visited several communities, George being one of them. We visited Elmer City and I can't remember I can't remember the one by Yakima, but yeah, we visited several of these cities in an effort to kind of get an idea of how we were going to line up the projects for the students coming that fall, and so because these were not as design intensive as they have been in the past, we figured that we could take on quite a few of these projects, and it turned out to be quite a bit. The students really stepped up, and we had a lot of community workshops and meetings, and then helping to give feedback to these engineering and design offices that were helping to put together these packages. The first project, I think, Bob, you were going to talk about George, and then I was going to talk about the other last two. So why don't I'll turn that over to you.
Sure. George is on I-90 near the gorge, and we worked with them in a series of workshops to just look at kind of, as the city grows, where would new parks be planned? what would the internal circulation and pathways be? What were the current opportunities with their a very small existing city park, and how could that serve some of the events that the city tends to put on every year and relate and in support for the community? And then, excuse me, you know, how would the city go about approaching developers as they put in new housing to get them to give up some of the land for pocket parks, pathways, etc.? Michael?
Great, let me. Another project that's fairly near to George is the city of Warden, and the city of Warden, located off kind of north of 26, Highway 26. Again, all these communities are pretty small, you know, several hundred community members. And we were really fortunate to be able to get a good sized group with Warden. And with the city of Warden, they did have some existing parks. And again, this particular PROS planning process was not intended to design a park, but rather to get an overview of what the community needed for their existing parks and for future parks. And so through Warden's process, we kind of discovered that there was an existing park space or actually it was just an existing city space next to their community center that was not being utilized. And so because of our multidisciplinary student group and then both Bob and I coming from different disciplines, we were able to help them realize the potential between their existing community center and this open space that was adjacent to it, but was divided by the building. There was not direct access to this. And so that really excited them about the potential of creating a new community park that would be more engaged with their community center. And so it sparked a lot of conversation. This particular town also has a trailhead that connects to the Cascade to Palouse trail. It used to be called the John Wayne Trail, but it's an old railroad line that has been converted to a trail system, and it's several hundred miles across. And it does bring quite a few people seasonally, bike riders, horseback riders, and things like that travel the trail, different segments of the trail. So they wanted to also incorporate trail improvements, the trailhead, make accessible for RVs and camp spaces where people who are coming to use this portion of the trail would be able to access it. Let's see, let's go to the next one.
In Morton, we found all these communities, the parks are tied to not only serving the needs of the population living there, but also to community events that brought in outside people and were actually sources of revenues for all the communities. In Morton, they have a large park called Jubilee Park that's heavily used once a year when they have their big lumberjack event. But then the other park, which is used more heavily by the community, also has a large RV center that was community raised money for the community. And so we looked at how do we tie these together? How do we make the Jubilee Park more year-round accessible, et cetera, as far as the discussions there. Michael, since we're about out of time, I'll let you go to the last one.
Yeah. And so the city of Kittitas was a late coming project that that we were able to get involved with. And the interesting aspect, I mean, City of Kittitas only has 2 kind of existing parks in their system. They are also part of the Cascade to Palouse trail system that goes right through their town. But the interesting thing about Kittitas was more about their community involvement. And so when we came to present, we had actually like 20 some community members there, and we thought that was great. But they felt like they had been spending a big effort to advertise this, and they were really disappointed that they didn't have more people there. And so it's been fun to experience a whole range of involvement and community participation in a lot of these rural communities. And one of the biggest things that we've discovered is a lot of these Central Washington communities have about 80% of their community is Hispanic or other ethnicities, and the involvement from that community is not as high as they would like, and a lot of it is due to translation. And so we've been offering, some of our students have been translators, and we've been offering bilingual flyers and things like that in order to try to bolster that level of population. But all of these communities have been a delight to work with, and the students have done and it's been a great experience for them in learning how to engage the community on this level. So I'll turn it over to Jessica.
Okay, thank you so much, Bob and Michael. Next, we'll hear from Kayla Wells-Yoakum for Extension's Community Engagement to Address the Digital Divide.
Thank you for that introduction, Jessica. Hello, everybody who is remaining on our workshop today. My name is Kayla, and I am presenting to you representing our WSU Extension Broadband and Digital Equity team. I am just the spokesperson today for about 15 Extension colleagues and countless community partners throughout the state. And we wanted to share with you our Broadband and Digital Equity project as an example of an extension project that could not have been successful without direct community engagement. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of the background about what we did with this project, and then also finish up with some impacts and results from the project. So some background. Our project was to support the development of both county and tribal level broadband action teams, and then to support those teams in their development of local broadband and digital equity plans. So why was this important? Why are broadband action teams, which we nickname BATs, why are they so important? Well, for one, our BATs help increase local engagement. Our BATs are made up of community representatives. They have a facilitator, and then members. And members are members of school districts and hospital districts and community members. Anybody can belong to a BAT, and the goal is to meet regularly to discuss their local broadband and digital equity challenges, to discuss opportunities in that realm, and to talk about successes. Our BATs can also offer trainings and increase local capacity. BATs can apply for local grants. The best thing about them is that they represent the communities, and they're at a county level or a tribal level. So they're small, and they truly represent the communities within which they exist. So that's a bit the background on BATs, and then here is the setup of the project. So WSU Extension received funding from the Washington State Broadband Office, and that funding was received at the state level. The great work that we did throughout the state, that our WSU Extension broadband team did throughout the state, could not have happened if the funding stopped there at the state level. So what happened from there is that there was engagement with all of the WSU Extension county and tribal directors and regional specialists throughout the state. We have 39 county extension offices and 1 tribal extension office. And all of us in extension, all of us at that level of county tribal directors were engaged in this project. But again, it didn't stop there. Then we went down to the next most local level and engaged with local communities, tribes, and existing BATs. In the counties and reservations that didn't have an existing BAT, a lot of relationship building time was put in the local areas to help get those BATs developed. And then the final level of engagement was that once those BATs were developed, they engaged with their local underserved and covered populations in their area in order to write and create plans that were truly representative of the communities that they live within. So what did engagement look like? In this project, engagement looked like community meetings, and these might have been planned and hosted by those of us in Extension who were engaged in the project, but those community meetings might have also been hosted by the local broadband action team facilitator or by community members themselves. We provided workshops. I think that there were probably a total of 8 workshops that were presented on the basics of broadband, basics of digital equity, what is the definition of a covered population, what are ways to reach out to covered populations, etc. Those workshops were provided in webinars as well as in person and face-to-face. There were a lot of emails and phone calls and engagement through word of mouth. In order to collect the impact data, there was a survey that was created and distributed throughout the state, distributed through the BATs to members of the community. So what were our impacts? So at the end of this year-long project, there were 24 BATs statewide. 15 of them had been established prior to the project, but not all of them were active. And so some of those 15 were newly gained some new momentum throughout the project. There were 9 new BATs that were formed, and we continue to have 5 at the end of the project. We're in the formation stage and are continuing towards full establishment today. We engaged statewide with 19 total of our Washington state tribes. 37 counties and 6 tribes submitted their broadband local action plans, and all 39 counties and 14 tribes submitted digital equity local action plans, which none of those could have happened without the engagement of the community and people's responses to the surveys. And the final impact is that a mapping tool was developed for each county, each BAT, each reservation, each tribe that was involved in the project to track the local data. And it is a tool that remains available and is out there in the communities for the BATs to continue to utilize and refer to in grant applications for funding for further broadband and digital equity projects. So that's I believe that's my final slide, wrapping up my presentation in representation of our statewide broadband and digital equity team. So thank you, Jessica. I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kayla. Next, we will hear remarks from Mel Netzhammer, Chancellor of the WSU Vancouver campus.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, everyone. It's really an honor to have a small opportunity to be a part of the Community Engagement Summit today. I really appreciate it. And I want to say, first of all, thanks to everyone who's presented, and how exciting it is to see the wide variety of projects that our community is engaging with. One of the true passions in my career has been community engagement, particularly the reciprocal relationships we develop with our community partners that address the challenges of the communities where we're located. It's not, we're not coming down from the hill and blessing our communities with our knowledge. We're actively engaging with them in this reciprocal way that I think is just so important. And in my career at each of the campuses where I've worked, community engagement has been central to the work of the university. At WSU, I think that commitment to community engagement is baked into our DNA. It's central to our land-grant mission. And fun fact, it is actually part of the legislation that created WSU Spokane, WSU Tri-Cities, and WSU Vancouver exactly 35 years ago tomorrow, our 35th anniversary coming up on Friday. We were founded to serve the communities in which we're located. At WSU Vancouver, I'm particularly grateful to Joanna Phelps and Narek Danielian, who lead those community engagement efforts for our campus. My appreciation for this work and my passion, my appreciation for the community engaged work that you all do and that is so prevalent across our campuses goes beyond legislative fiat or my own personal belief in the value of service. I've seen the impact that community-based learning and research can have on student success. It can be transformative. It can have a lifelong impact. Students that I'm still in contact with from when I was in Buffalo, 20 plus years ago, still talk about those experiences and how that it had an impact on their careers and their lives. And I think that's true for faculty research as well. Engagement with the community creates this reciprocity that lifts both the community and the university, but it also elevates the faculty members' research. And I think we've seen some of that. Volumes have been written about why this is true, but the bottom line for me is this: community engagement creates a personal stake for our students, for our faculty, and our staff. It links their successes to the success of the communities we live in and that we serve. And for me, that is the great motivator of community engagement and why we all do this work, why this work is so important to me as well. So I want to thank you all for participating today, particularly those who presented, and for reaffirming a commitment to service learning, community-based research, volunteering, and the many, many ways in which we engage with our communities. Thank you all very much, and go Cougs.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mel, for being here. We appreciate you and everyone for being here today and participating in the summit. Next, we are transitioning to our information sessions. The information sessions are 20 minutes. They are final 20 minutes of the webinar. You will see a breakout room pop-up window, and you can select which breakout session you'd like to attend. If you're having any technical issues, we can help by manually adding you to a room of your choice, so no worries. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you really enjoy the breakout sessions. And after those are complete, feel free to leave the webinar and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much, everybody.